All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Henry, for joining us today. As I told you on the phone, this is a position for assistant principal at South Grand Prairie High School. I'm Erica McMinn. I'm the Dean of Instruction here. So I want to just kind of get started off and just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been a teacher a family consumer science teacher for 15 years. I've been at GPISD the entire time, and I've had the opportunity of growing our education and leadership pathway program.
Okay, great. That's awesome. So why do you want, I mean, since you've been a teacher for a number of years and, grown all the different programs, why do you want to become an assistant principal?
Well, throughout my experience at SGP, I've been given opportunities with leadership. And so I feel that I'm ready to show these leadership skills, not just in the classroom, but to put them in the building and to help grow others. As I mentioned, I am a teacher who teaches future students or future teachers, even though they're high school bound, to grow. And so I feel like I help them grow. I think I'm able to do the same thing as a principal position with our new teachers and showing them using the skills that I have to help them get better, in whether it be with instruction, classroom management, and other areas that they may need.
Great. So we talk about as a leader, like what do you just find as your leadership style?
Well, I find that I may be pretty firm, and I know that could have some disadvantages. I know with the firmness, I need to take each experience or each situation may need to per base. So for instance, everything can't be what do you want to call it? Straightforward. Just because it happens to you doesn't necessarily mean it has to have the other teacher the same way, because I don't have to tell other teachers why I disciplined or why I had this conversation with the teacher, because for confidentiality reasons. However, I do feel that I need to, I know I'm firm. I feel like I'm also a good listener. So if a teacher has, a situation that I feel like if they don't like how I'm saying something, or they don't like the new procedure or process or something, that I have the opportunity and the skill to listen to them and to maybe work with them to collaborate on that. Now, it may not always be the case. Obviously, they may not be able to get their way. But I think just having that opportunity of listening to them and letting them see that I value them. So it's not just my way and only my way, you know?
No, that's good. So when we talk about assistant principal or instructional leaders, what do you think some of the skills or traits that you think that an instructional leader needs to possess?
I think they should be consistent. I believe also there needs to be a organization. It should be not so much that it's regimented, so it's so strict and firm, but I do think that there needs to be an organization level to have that. I also feel like you need to have the listening side of thing. I think that if you're not able to listen to others, it's all going to be one-sided. And if it's only one-sided, you're going to lose the people. And which means if you lose the people, they're not going to want to work for you, or they're not going to want to work with you. So I think communication is going to be essential with that. I think modeling is also important. I think that if I was to expect a teacher to do something, I should also be doing the same thing. An example could be, if I'm saying we're now, obviously due to the situation that we've heard about in May with Uvalde, if we're asking our teachers to wear their lanyards with an ID, I should also wear my ID and lanyard, just as I'm asking the teachers. So I think that being a model is important as well.
Okay, great. So, and as assistant principal, there's lots of different hats that you're going to wear, but what do you think is one of the biggest or the greatest challenges of being an assistant principal?
One of the biggest challenges of being an assistant principal,
or what you perceive as being a challenge?
Well, at the secondary level, I think our big challenge is going to be discipline, especially coming into this school year. I do feel like I'm pretty consistent with that. I don't think that I have any favorites or disfavorites or whatever you want to call it. I don't think that I tend to have more biases towards whether it be a gender or color of skin. I think that could be pretty significant. I will say though, that as a CTE person, I am not data driven the way some of our other core teachers are. So I know that is a very effective tool to understand your data. So for me to be more effective, I think a challenge for me is going to be to make sure that I understand how this data works. I need to be able to explain it at any given time. And I know that's something that I'm going to have to work on. Is one of my biggest personal challenges is that data driven side of things. However, I understand the importance of data. So, and I like the data, maybe because I'm a newbie, but I like to, I see how, it's a no brainer, if we're looking to see what we need to do and we have data there to support it. So how can we address our needs,
Okay. So when you're working as an assistant principal, you're going to work, with a team, but also, what would you qualify as like an effective team? Like what makes an effective team? What would you say like is the description of an effective team?
I think we, as an effective team, we need to be able to support each other. We may not all agree, but I also feel that if there is a disagreement, that we can't turn into be leading the meeting or whatever and starting to put down our colleagues. I feel that you need to, it's okay to agree to disagree, but again, I'm going to go back to the listening, what does that communication look like? So if there tends to feel like some animosity or some tension, I think it's in the best interest, whether you have a private conversation with that person directly, not as a whole group, but just kind of what's going on,
Right.
As a new person coming in, I wouldn't know everything. And I would expect that my colleagues would help me grow in this capacity, because with not having that experience, I would only hope that I would be part of a team that would allow and help me grow. So
what would you say? So one of the things that as a role as an assistant principal that you'd be coaching, teachers. So how would you approach an underperforming teacher?
Well, first I would ask them how they feel that they're doing. I also think that if you start off with attacking, that's going to shut them down. So I'd like to get them to let them realize where exactly they're at. So whether it be like, tell me what happened good, let them start to do the reflection. And then through that, have the discussion, could you do anything differently? If you could change anything, what would it be? As we know, when we're doing the walkthroughs, it's not about trying to find the aha, you did it wrong.
Sure.
My purpose is supposed to help grow. And if there is, and to provide feedback in a way that allows them to grow. If I'm just checking, yes, I liked, or yes, I saw, that really doesn't serve any purpose other than I saw it. So I think first and foremost would be getting them to reflect on how they felt the lesson went, or what went well, or what didn't go well. And then from that, move into what do I think could be done differently, maybe providing some strategies or some areas that may be successful in to make that a better lesson or idea.
Okay, good. How do you handle challenging parents?
Well, I've had those before. Again, I'm going to go with my favorite word of listening. You've got to let them talk. So when they're talking, then what I can do is restate what I'm hearing so we can clear up any discrepancies. That's first and foremost. Are we on the same page? I would think in education that we want the best interest for students, whether it be their own student, and I know that that's why they're there, and me personally for all of the students. So I need to first analyze what is their problem. And by doing so is letting them talk, and then I can restate what I'm hearing to clear up anything from there. And then we can move into what would be some good options and things like that. Obviously a parent can't come in demanding, hey, this is what I need, this is what I want, but they can certainly talk about it, and then we can see if it can possibly work. But for some reasons, for some situations, we can't just cater to our parents in that capacity. We have to be able to definitely not make a decision right away as well. So not saying I'm going to get back to you in a week, but say, may have to give them a day or two, a day, so you can make sure that everything is in the right capacity, in the right way, because I certainly wouldn't want to lead the parent to think something's going to happen and it couldn't happen.
Right.
Because then my word becomes nothing. So I need to make sure that there are procedures or policies in place with the district that I'm not breaking, but certainly is having that communication with the parent and trying to diffuse the hostility to start with.
Mhm.
You know,
What is just kind of that same grain of discipline? How would you handle a situation where a student and a teacher have a conflict?
That's a tough one, because I'm all about making relationships. It's been really easy for me to make relationships, and obviously there could be conflict of interest when we have teachers and students. They're not all gonna get along. So what I would do is individually get with the student and then the teacher and kind of see what their take is on it from that. And then if we can bring in the two together to see what our next steps would look like and what would happen if behavior continues. We can't expect a child or a student to change if we're not going to hold our teachers accountable as well. So I do believe it's best to find both sides of the story. And it may be safer to do individually than it would be to do together at first, but I think me personally, it should start individually, then bring together, and then we start to look at what the next steps would be or what they would look like. And then what any consequences or other situations that we have to address if they were to arise.
We're going to shift away from discipline. So let's just talk a little bit more about like from teacher perspective. What advice would you give for like first year teachers? We have a lot of new teachers entering the profession. What first year advice would you, what advice would you give those first year teachers?
I would advise the first year teachers to not to hesitate to ask. Don't be afraid. That's one thing. As we're starting off the school year with a lot of new teachers. Unfortunately, I would hope that I know we give our teachers mentors, that the mentors that they were given were strong leader capacities, not one that's just because, ooh, that's a popular teacher. I hope it's a teacher that has instilled leadership values, and one that's, and I'm going to say one that follows our mission statement, our values, our beliefs of the school. We want to have the consistency, and if we are not training our new teachers the way we want the school to look, the school won't look that way because we have a gap somewhere. So I would, again, going back to that, I would hope that encourage them to ask questions, providing them also with a strong mentor that was selected intentionally, who our mentors are. And then as a principal, I would get to know them. Not, I think I need to set that relationship up with them as well. If I want that with student teachers, I should have that with my faculty as well. So seeing how I can help them. And then if I hear that there's something arising or something, that I can do what I need to do to make it work for them.
What about when we talk about students? I mean, that's one of our main goals of like why we're here. Is that how do you foresee like as an assistant principal that you're able to ensure student success or contribute to academic growth?
Well, I feel that as a principal, I should have built relationships up with students. I know I'm not going to know all the student population here. That's I get that we're of that large of nature. And typically the students only see the principal if they're in trouble. So hopefully making it so I am not intimidating to them, so they feel comfortable and they start sharing. And with that, you're also going to know academic success because you're going to see that they want to come to school. You're going to see that the attendance may increase, or is it increase or decrease? We want to have good attendance. We want to see, what's our attendance look like? What does our tardies look like? The overall discipline look like? So if we are capturing these kids, okay, which carries over to academic growth, they're wanting to perform, okay, maybe it's moving from extrinsically to intrinsically because of the teacher, because of the relationship. So monitoring that whole gambit of looking at things. But I think though, starting to build those relationships, making myself accessible. And of course, you can go look at the data any given day to see, and actively monitoring that to see that that's happening. If you see that there's a need, you're seeing a particular teacher tends to have poor performance, is it because they have lack of grades? Is that the reason why all their grades are so low? Is it because maybe a certain test in there? So talking to the teacher, what's going on? We see this test is poor performing. Students, teacher, what kind of reflection can happen with that? So
What do you think, we talk a lot about teachers and students, we also have our parents. So how do you think, where do you see your role as an engaging parents? Like, what role do you think parents should have within our school?
well, I would love to see more parental involvement on campus. I believe that we're doing the right thing with having a newsletter, inviting parents with the information that we have, providing the parents with the information that we have, encouraging them to come up. I would love to have more parental involvement. But first we have to ensure that they're getting this information. So unfortunately, when we have open houses or meet the teachers or PTA nights, we're not seeing a lot of activity that way. So we've got to figure out how can we get these parents in this building. And so whether it be more social media prevalence, putting more things out there, and it doesn't always have to be about how our sports are doing or how our academics are doing, or maybe it's just, hey, this is what we have up and coming in the community, because we do know the community does support the campus. We just now need to encourage our parents to, we want you on campus as well, of course, with background check and all those policies, so.
Right. What about, one last thing to close out, how do you motivate those teachers that we have a lot of, you have a lot of veteran teachers on a campus. And some of those veteran teachers, sometimes, as we like to call it, look in our district, we've got their basement teachers. How do you feel like you can motivate those individuals?
That is tough because they can suck a lot of energy out of you, and it is toxic. It is toxic. So first, if they're identified, I think it is a conversation. No one likes to have those conversations, but I think it's a conversation to see, hey, what's going on? I'm not attacking, I'm just asking. Having an advisory council that possibly gets these basement teachers an opportunity to listen because or to give their input, because sometimes we know our teachers aren't happy because they feel that they're not valued, and they're not valued because they think when they talk they're not being listened to. So maybe a platform wasn't established yet to have these teachers say things. So but again, I think having those tough conversations, don't be scared to have them. Again, it's not accusatory, but also just letting them know that it's getting a subtle, hey, I'm knowing, I'm seeing what's going on here, and then, but I certainly wouldn't call them out and say, you got to get in the balcony. You know what, you're sucking stuff out of this campus. I don't think that's the way to go at all. But I do think addressing it, and then again, like I said, having this maybe opportunity for them to voice some concerns or just hearing them. And then we do know that, teachers, if they feel valued, they're going to want to come to work. They're going to give more effort out in the classroom and things. So letting the teachers know that they are valued will make the difference.
Do you have any of thank you so much for answering those questions. Do you have any questions for me?
I just have one, and I would ask, so as a first year assistant principal, is there a mentorship, or what type of mentoring happens at this level?
There's a variety of different things that is done. So where you're mentored with some of the veteran assistant principals, usually paired up with an assistant principal that's been, on the campus. The deans are really one of those people that you'll lean on quite frequently. There isn't, I wouldn't say a formalized program, but you do go through a lot of different trainings through the district. During the summer when the teachers aren't here, during the summer, those are when a lot of all of the campus leadership gets together. And so they do have a lot of those different trainings that are very specific for leadership. So it's not like something that's ongoing throughout. I would say there is something ongoing throughout the year, like once a month that GPISD does have all of their campus leadership go to. So they do make sure that they dedicate that time so that not all of us can be off campus at the same time, but they offer morning and afternoon sessions, and they make sure that they cover that. So they do want to make sure that you're supported And, you know, you lean onto those individuals that are on your campus that have been veterans of that campus. So
Well, that's nice to hear. That's nice to
Yeah.
hear.
well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And feel free to reach back out if you have any questions.
Oh, thank you again. It was a pleasure talking with you today.